Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Happy Thanksgiving night, nation. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez with you here. We got a busy show for you, but not too busy because it's the holidays. You know, I'm sure you're probably going to be listening. We're putting it out early because we know you're going to be out traveling on Wednesday for the holiday. You want something to listen to while the turkey's in the oven, and we got your back. Getting ready for Black Friday. We'll talk about basketball's hot start too. We got a special early Christmas present for you, Eric Lopez. We got McKenna Melville.
That's right. We should all be thankful for having McKenna Melville in UCF volleyball.
Am I thankful? And the old story goes behind her, right? I am so thankful that she grew 6 inches in high school and became an outside hitter because, my God, the best volleyball player in school history for my money. So
she's right up there, certainly up there. We're going to talk to her, talk about fresh off her 4th straight conference championship. She'll give us the details on that, as well as obviously what to expect here for postseason.
Yep, and Bryson Turner will join us later to talk about women's basketball, men's basketball, and volleyball as well. But we start out with football. And this is it. This is it. The regular season finale, the war on I-4. Could it be the penultimate war on I-4?
That's what I'm calling it.
Could it be the last one in the bounce house? We don't know. This could be it. Stat Boy Drew, Andrew Gluchov, Gluchov is joining us. I screwed up your name. Wow.
Wow.
Man, my pride just took it. No, don't feel bad. I've heard some weird ways of butchering my name.
I think Jeff did that on purpose, Drew, because you two are not on the same page when it comes to the UCF jerseys. You guys will get into later.
All right. Well, we'll get to wait a second. Let's not spoil the first segment here right off the bat. All right. I want to talk right now about what we saw from this past weekend as you know, UCF got another blowout victory over UConn. Hopefully and I guess it is now tradition that the winning team of the civil conflict leaves the trophy out on the field. I think that's now the new tradition.
Well, UConn hasn't won a game, so I mean, I guess they never will. It's the most intriguing matchup that wasn't intriguing at all.
Right. Well, UCF right now 7-4, 4-3 in the conference, chance to get to 5-3, chance to get to 8 wins on the season, chance to go to 7-0 at home. After that 49-17 win over UConn, obviously a non-conference game now, but we've seen what we had to do. UCF did what they had to do. Right. It was workmanlike, 28-0 right off the bat. You know, I thought we saw some pretty good things. I thought from the defense. Stephen Krajewski threw 3 interceptions for UConn. On the other side, Mikey Keene, 23-29, 208 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was sacked once. Remarkably efficient. Career day for Johnny Richardson, 147 yards on 14 carries. Parker Navarro got some action, scored a touchdown. Keene scored on a 30-yard run, which is an amazing run, reminiscent of the Dylan Gabriel run in the Boise State game. I thought, you know, kind of how he kind of cut back and cut toward that right pylon. And then Brandon Johnson, great game for Brandon, 7 carries, 125 yards and a touchdown. The highlight was that touchdown catch that he received from Ryan O'Keefe, 49-yarder in the second quarter. You UCF just kind of toyed with UConn from that point on. So we were thinking, all right, we got to see this in preparation for the war on I-4. Did we see, Drew, what we expected to see?
Well, I mean, this was a case of UCF once again showing opportunism. They did it against SMU, and that's what got them ahead early, was taking advantage of mistakes. UCF had short field on 2 occasions, the first 2 drives. They scored on both of those drives. Then they got the ball the third time, just outside of midfield, scored again. And then actually the best drive in the game, in my opinion, was the 4th touchdown that UCF scored, was a 98-yard drive. I think that was the best one, because that's the one that they've actually struggled the most with, is sustained drives. And they were able to do it. Now, granted, UConn's not
against UConn.
It's against UConn. But I don't want to go down the Eric Lopez lane and call it's a scrimmage. But no, here
actually, that's probably an insult to scrimmages, to be honest. But anyway.
Yeah, you see, there you go. Okay.
I knew I was going to get that out of him. But here's the thing: it gave an opportunity to try some things, have a little fun. Playing at home gives you a lot of freedom because you've got the crowd behind you, you've got this atmosphere. Ryan O'Keefe's 2 for 2 with 2 touchdowns. I think he needs to throw the ball more.
Oh, stop it.
It just works. He was actually they tried it again. He didn't see anything, and he wisely pulled it down. Now, granted, he fumbled later, but that was after he gained 13 yards. I don't blame the passing part on that. But Johnny Richardson had a career game. Was able to flash stuff that he hadn't been able to. And Coach Malzahn said that it was they saw outside lanes were open and available. So they started using Johnny a lot more, and he was able to get those outside runs. That's what he's good at. Yeah. And we saw Mark Anthony Richards, 10 carries, only 31 yards. But, he's the guy that's really more of the between the tackles runner, maybe a little bit off tackle. Johnny's the outside guy. So, you go with what the matchup tells you, but what your players can and can't do. Johnny's not going to carry 2 or 3 guys. He's just not built for that. Mark Anthony, he can take a hit and carry a guy, but they didn't need him. I also want to add that Johnny did score a touchdown. I don't know if that was meant. I didn't catch that.
I did not mention that. No, yeah.
He did have a rushing touchdown. And on the receiving side, Brandon Johnson, that great touchdown. He's the guy who's developed the best rapport with Mikey Keene. And I think that's one reason why we don't see Jalen Robinson as much on the field. Aside from the fact that, if you don't need him, don't overuse him. But between Ryan and Brandon, they're the 2 that have developed the best chemistry with Mikey Keene since they've been on the field. And it's hard to turn away from that because it's working. So you've seen, in 2 wide receiver sets, it's Ryan and Brandon. And then Jalen is the 3rd guy. And then we've seen Amari Johnson, out there. We've seen, the tight ends, Jake Hescock. He actually had a throw. We didn't see anything thrown to Alec Collar this time. Didn't need to. The UCF was really never tested at any point. But again, UCF's offense focuses on the run, setting up the pass. And that's what happened here. Johnny Richardson is gashing the defense. It's forcing them to respect the run, which hasn't happened much this year when Isaiah Bowser has been out. And that's allowed Mikey Keene to be able to do a lot more. And he was efficient, really efficient. 23 of 29. That's an efficient day. And granted, a lot of that stuff was smaller underneath, a lot of 5-yard gains. But you know what? I'll take a 5-yard gain every single play, because that guarantees I'm getting a first down and moving the ball. So, were they big plays? No, but they don't have to be.
Yeah, this isn't the air raid.
It's not the air raid. This is a way different, and it's about balance. 280 rushing
Although they
yards.
still put up the same amount of points that you would expect from the air raid, 49.
Well, and part of that was taking advantage of the short field and, doing what you need to do. But 280 yards rushing, 257 yards passing, that's balance. And that's something that Gus Malzahn is looking for, especially with the dynamic that the team is right now. where you have a very young quarterback. You don't want to put too much on him, and you have a stable of running backs that each bring something different to the table, but can do stuff. They're talented. It's not like you're at the bottom of the bench and you're dealing with guys who really aren't ready to be out there. UCF has that luxury. They don't have to worry about that.
Just a note on Brandon Johnson. He's got 10 touchdowns on the year, one more, and he's in the top 10 single season all time at UCF. The record holder is Brett Cooper, had 14 back in 1992.
Now, if I'm
Orlando Predator legend, Brett Cooper.
That's right, Brett Cooper.
If I'm correct, guys, Brandon Johnson only had one touchdown at Tennessee, one total. Right. And he's got 10 now. Obviously, he's really grown into the role. His leadership is widely talked about as something very valuable. And we're seeing his effect on the offense. The game is slowing down for Keene. He's becoming more and more comfortable. Yeah, last week, things kind of went off the rails a little bit. You're playing against a really good SMU team that put everything in one basket and then used up all their mojo, and they had none for against Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Which
we saw that. They got clobbered by Cincinnati. Holy moly.
I do. One of the things that's interesting is, it kind of happened to Cincinnati too. They played against UCF. They beat them soundly, and then they started laying some eggs. Some ugly games afterwards. Maybe it's you're.
Well, maybe Sonny Dykes was just busy negotiating his deal with go to TCU allegedly.
Perhaps there was a business meeting to be had. We have seen that before.
Sonny spent a significant portion of the week in Fort Worth.
Yeah, I'm not saying. I'm just saying. However, I do want to highlight a couple of things that still have to be of concern for this team.
All right,
especially penalties. 7 for 80. Penalties. They came in some pretty rough times. So you got to limit that. And then the second thing is third down conversions. Still a problem. 4 for 11. That's not good. Not against a team like UConn. They need to do better. And that's been a problem all year.
They got themselves into some bad thirds and long, I should say, in this game. I didn't see exactly how many they had that were 6 yards or longer, but that's not. They don't want that. I know that there were several of them there. They got behind the sticks, and I think that's what contributed to the bad third down to the bad third down percentage. And then you look at true. One of the things I look at is true conversion percentage, which is kind of third and fourth downs. Which UCF was 1 of 1 on fourth down, so they were 5 of 11 nowadays.
12.
Or well, if you don't convert the third down and you do convert the fourth down, still
okay. I see what you mean. Yes.
Yeah, you add up your third and the third and fourth downs that you convert, and then it's that number for whatever number of third downs you have.
Still,
so that's your third down conversion.
True conversion. Is it better? Percentage. Yeah. Is it still under 50%? Yeah.
And a little bit under 50%, but still, yeah.
Yeah. Against a team like Connecticut, that's not really acceptable.
Yeah. Not great, Bob.
No, it's not. It's not.
Well,
but on the flip side, defense had a solid game. Gave up only 311 yards, 9 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. They had 7 or 8 quarterback hurries. They were a very busy team and did an outstanding job just altogether. They had 8 pass breakups. They did all sorts of stuff. They were everywhere. And you had contributors all over the field. Once again, Tatum Bethune is a man possessed. 14 total tackles, had a half a sack, a tackle and a half for loss. Very busy guy. But I got to say the highlight of the game had to be the interception by Cam Good.
Yeah,
defensive lineman Cam Good.
Well, listen. Let's not take away from Justin Hodges, who made the catch of the day on his interception too.
Well, yeah, but there's something about a big man with an interception. We saw it on, I don't know if
large man interceptions.
Monday Night Football, we saw it. The Buccaneers last night against your New York Giants.
I didn't see it. I shut the game off anyway.
Anyway, all right, listen, we're spending too much time on really and I want to apologize to FCS schools out there because I always refer when they play an FCS school as a scrimmage. UConn's far worse than an FCS school. They're a walkthrough. This was a glorified walkthrough. So I want to apologize to all scrimmages out there for insulting you for comparing UConn to other scrimmages.
and they did, there was a 30.5-point spread. They did clear it at 32. It was
so a few of us were happy about that.
Little tense at the end of the game.
You better believe it. You better believe it.
Things were a little hairy toward the end.
I weren't sure if that spread was going to hold or not. I'm standing downstairs with Trace Troco, and he's like eyeballing that TV really intently.
Yeah, UConn was moving that ball. So anyway, all right. So that brings us to the short week and the war on I-4. UCF and USF are tied all time in the season series. 6-6. UCF can take the lead for the first time ever this weekend with a victory. USF is coming off of 4 consecutive losses. They threw up 35 points each, or I shouldn't say that. They threw up 70 combined points against the top 2 teams in the American back-to-back, Houston and Cincinnati at home. But then the bottom fell out against Tulane last week, 45-14. They looked terrible. There's no other way to really say it. They went up. It went up 7-0, and then Tulane rips off 45 unanswered points, including 28 in the first quarter. Michael Pratt was 19-24, 311 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Timmy McClain had an average at best day, 15-27, 132 and a pick. Tyjae Spears for Tulane had 111 yards and 2 scores on 13 carries. And USF comes into this game listless, having just had their fired their defensive coordinator, Glenn Spencer, after that embarrassing performance in New Orleans. And Eric, you have said that, and I started to believe you there for a couple of weeks after that Cincinnati-Houston game, that it looked like South Florida was trying to turn the corner, and then this was a major setback for them. Are you expecting them? What are you expecting from them this Friday?
I expect them to play with the most passion they've played all season long. I actually think the Tulane game was the worst thing that could have happened. First of all, a lot of people have bad day hangovers at 11 a.m. in Bourbon, near Bourbon Street. So speaking from experience, they fired their defense coordinator. Their defense has been terrible all year. I don't think that was a surprise. Offensively,
their defense is 122nd in passing yards allowed, 115th in rush defense, 125th in FBS in total defense.
Right. But I think USF will come ready to play. If you look at last year, USF was terrible last year, and they played arguably one of their best games of the year last year, where they put up over 40 points against UCF, and it was an ugly win for UCF. And look, it's a rivalry game. Things are going to be emotional. They're going to be intense. And I think for UCF, look, this is an important game. This is a don't lose game. You can get away with winning ugly in this game because of all the injuries, but I do think this game will help define this season. If you win this game, you're 8-4. You're probably going to go to a good bowl game, maybe against the Sunshine State program in the Florida, as yours truly is projecting on our bowl projections with Mr. Gluchov. And I think people would look at it as a good season. You have a great recruiting class coming in. There's a lot of positive vibes.
Fought your way to a 9-4. I think that with all the injuries, obviously Dylan Gabriel being the big one, Isaiah Bowser, all the injuries that they had on defense, you come out of this game 8-4. I think that you could make the argument that UCF overachieved.
I think it's one of Gus's best jobs if they win this game. However, if they somehow lose this game, all that's out the window. All that's out the window.
Here's the thing about South Florida. It's really a tale of 2 teams. You look at their schedule. There's only one game, and that was against BYU back in September, that they kept it within 1 score on the road. Every other game has been double digits. I think 15 against East Carolina was the closest deficit. They're a home team. You look at the home records. Other than Florida, which they lost by 22, and Florida was still pretty good at the time, the home games have been close. They either won or they were, within respectability. I mean, Cincinnati was 17, but Cincinnati's
they lost by 1 to Tulsa. They Temple hung around. They beat them by 20.
have
They
8
kept-
against Houston, and then Cincinnati was 17. But Cincinnati,
they hung around with Cincy for a while.
Yeah, Cincinnati basically has opened the door for the CFP committee to really have to think very long and hard about them.
Yeah.
So I think they're in. Eric thinks they're in. It's really up to them at this point. They just have to win out.
Well, just play like they did against SMU. I mean, just play like you did.
You, Drew, until they're in, they're not in.
Well, yeah. but hey, I was told I have to do projections, so I have to at least put the speculating cap on. I try not to do that too much, but for bold projections, I have to. And just things are just falling in Cincinnati's place. Just things are just falling into place. But not to deviate too much away from the game Friday. This is a rivalry game. Weird things happen in rivalry games. You can have a winless year. And if you get one win, you want it to be against the rival. Other than that, you'd be like, you know what? I'll take every loss as long as I can beat that one team.
Them. Yeah.
Not them. And look, Tatum Bethune, I don't like that team. That team. I hate them. He said that. Quote.
Well said.
He wouldn't even name them. That's what a rivalry is all about. And I think UCF fans are gonna have a little bit of some emotions to go with it that they don't realize once it's gone. You come to the Big 12 and there's really nothing out the door, like that you can just open the can and there it is, of a built-in rivalry. Yeah, Cincinnati, it's been pretty good the last few years on football, not really anything else. Houston, it's a little bit there, but to a lesser extent. And then there's really nothing. So, I mean.
Well, let's kind of put this, because some people may not be aware what you're referring to. This could be the last time these two teams play in the bounce house, and then next year they'll play in Tampa, and that could be it. There is nothing, and really both sides have kind of been lukewarm on this. I don't think there's enough room on the non-conference schedule to add it. Plus, They would not be able to even play on a Black Friday because in the Big 12, you play your conference games on Thanksgiving weekend. So we could be watching the end of this series, and it sounds from your voice you believe that's the case.
At least in
the short term. By the way, their non-conference schedule, USF, is full until 2028.
Yeah, at least in the short term. And if something comes back, it's going to be on like a 2 or 4 year basis. And it's going to be in the early part of the year. You're not going to have this end of year buildup. It's going to be, you're still going to have a trophy game because I don't think they're going to make the trophy just disappear. It won't be.
The All Sports trophy will still be there.
Yeah, and UCF and USF are still going to play in non-conference in other sports. It makes too much
Which
sense.
I would argue actually there's a more legit rivalry in those sports than there is in
more
football.
Developed.
Well, yeah, and both programs are usually good in the other sports. Whereas football, they've never really been great at the same time, except for like 2017. There was the big one great game. Outside of that, this has been a dud, really, in the big picture of things. And I disagree with you, Drew. I don't think UCF fans will miss this football game at all. You look at this year, they look at Cincinnati as the bigger game than South Florida anyway.
Well,
so I think they're already got
USF's not very good.
Well, they haven't been for a while, and I don't think they're going to be for any time soon.
Not until that administration decides to actually get behind the football program, which they haven't in a number of years, and it's showing
the athletic program in general.
Just in general,
right? Because in fairness, Michael Kelly he kind of inherited a lot of this.
Not to mention the fact that the university doesn't have a professor or doesn't have a president right now.
Yeah, he's trying. I got to give Michael Kelly some credit. He's trying there, but the thing is, you can only push that boulder uphill.
He's like the myth of Sisyphus. He pushes the boulder. You push the boulder up. You almost get it to the top of the hill, and then it just rolls back down every single time.
Every single time.
They are 2-17 in their last 19 games.
And if you take out.
And they've lost their last 11 on the road. If
you take out the FCS wins, they have one FBS win in the last 2 years. And that was against Temple this year. I mean, we know how bad Temple is. And how did Temple describe UCF? It was USF but better. So if it's USF but better, and that's how they were described going into the game, you're expecting a pretty.
That's harsh.
I don't think he's wrong though. I mean, I think it's a very accurate statement. You want to be viewed as better, win a game or two.
Well, the number, according to OddsShark, is 18.5, and that's up from 17. And that inevitably,
USF has no defensive coordinator. They're patchworking it right now with a couple of assistants.
Yeah. So my next question to you, Drew, is this. Well, it's really two questions. Do we see Dillon Gabriel?
If you asked me this before the weekend, I would say yes. But I've heard he's been sick and not practicing as of yesterday. So, I don't know if that's going to be a material, hit on him getting back. Because, it's not all about the physical aspect. It's the mental aspect too. You got to develop the timing with the receivers and get that chemistry back, which, doesn't happen overnight. Do I want to see him back? Absolutely. That would be perfect. Even if he chooses to redshirt the year, which he technically still could, you come back for that 1 game, because here's a unique opportunity for Dillon. Even if he left after this year and went to the pros wherever, if he played next week, he would have an opportunity to do what Mackenzie Milton couldn't do: start 3 times against USF and win them all.
Mm-hmm.
Mackenzie's only 2-1 in starts, so I know the two are best friends. There's probably a little friendly rivalry at times. I mean, why not? That's an opportunity that he could have that Milton could not, because Milton lost. The team lost in 2016.
Yeah, 2016. Yeah, the game in Tampa. Excuse me, sneezed. Mikey Keene. I want to bring this up. First 5 games of his tenure, 5 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. The last 4 games, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception. So has he turned the corner here?
Well, I don't want to say he's turned the corner, but the game's slowing down for him. And that was something that I asked him when we interviewed him after the game. And you can see it through the numbers. Yeah, he's not huge on the yards per attempt. He's not going to air the ball all that much. But after the rough one against Memphis, where he threw for 63 yards, he's had over 70% completion in 3 of 4 games.
840 yards over the last total over the last 4 games. That's quick math, 210 yards a game.
It's
and
consistent.
10 touchdowns, 1 pick. Not bad for your true freshman, 18-year-old true freshman.
Not bad at all. 71%, 76, 51, 79. Obviously that UConn one is inflated just because it was a bad defense. But
still did what he was supposed to do.
Did what he was supposed to. And that's where the good running game comes into play. He can be a game manager. He doesn't have to carry the team. And when the running game can't get going, that's when he's stuck having to do a lot more. I mean, he had 29 passes, on Saturday. He had 35 against SMU, which ties a career high with East Carolina. In both the East Carolina and the SMU games, he had to try to carry the team because the running game it wasn't doing what was supposed to be done. It just wasn't working. Obviously against ECU, Bowser was out, there was injuries. So he had to carry the team, especially on that final drive where the switch went off and he was nearly perfect. We're seeing more of that, not quite there yet, but if I'm expecting Dillon to move on next year, and before the season started, I would have said absolutely. But at this point, I don't know what he's going to do because he's missed so much time. I actually am feeling more and more confident with Mikey Keene being the guy next year because we're seeing a tangible development. It's not just he's just kind of floating through. We're seeing the development, looking back from prior weeks. You got that Temple game where he could do no wrong, except for one throw that somehow turned into a fumble and a new possession. And we're seeing more and more of him being smarter with the ball, not throwing in as much double coverage, taking what the defense gives him, what's stuff that you expect out of an FBS quarterback. And we're seeing more and more of it. You give him an off season with a coaching staff that's, you may lose an assistant or two, if they get hired away, but from a coaching staff that's going to be relatively stable, which obviously did not happen from last year to this year. You've got a whole off season, the sky's the limit here. And
Darren Inshaw working with him. That's what I'd like to see too. Him and GJ Kinney. I love that. I'm really looking forward to that.
There's reasons to be excited, but I think Eric put it very well. You have to win this game. This is the rivalry game. It's the big one. Fans are fans weren't as interested in Connecticut. This isn't Connecticut. This is that team that's down the road that you don't like. And you're going to be there. It's going to be Black Friday. It's going to be nationally televised. It's going to be loud. It's going to be a lot of energy. And that's what you want as fans. Give the team, and the team feeds off it. I mean, how many times has Gus Malzahn raved about the energy and noise that the fans give the team, even on days when it's not a full stadium?
College football's greatest fans. Oh, I say it every time we come out. College football's greatest fans, no doubt.
UCF may not have the biggest stadium. They may not have the largest fan base. It's a young and growing program. But pound for pound, this student section especially is some of the loudest and fiercest you'll find anywhere. That stadium gets loud. It's
just ask Desmond Ritter.
Noise. Yeah.
Right?
Desmond Ritter. After he beat Notre Dame, he was asked, was that the loudest game you ever been to? He goes, no. It was 2018 at UCF College Game Day was the loudest environment that he's ever been in. And I want to see that on Friday.
Yeah.
That's
I'm with you.
And that's one reason why I love college football more so than professional is you get this special energy that you don't get in professional, because the student section, there are no student sections in pro. You get them in college. And UCF was smart. They split the student section apart. There is no safe space in the bounce house. You want to be safe from the noise, stand at midfield. But you end up on either side, you've got a raucous, noisy student section that is ready to make your day very miserable. Yeah. And I love it.
I can't wait for this one. I really can't wait for it. All right, we need to talk about the uniforms. And we need to talk about the new logo that just dropped too. So I had no idea about this new Knighthead logo. Nobody had any idea that they were good, but UCF unveils a new Knighthead logo that was designed.
Really good at keeping things under wraps. They really are.
Really good. That they dropped a new Knighthead logo, all designed in-house, by the way. I saw somebody had speculated on the UCF Twitter community that I'm a part of that it was that Adidas had a hand in it. They did not. It was entirely designed in-house. It's looking more at you rather than awkward family picture to the side.
Into your soul and burns a hole.
I love the little star on the crest. That's my favorite part. All right, reach for the stars. That's my favorite. Now, it makes its debut on a helmet, black helmet, this Friday. And UCF, of course, going all black. I love. Now, I said this on Twitter, and I really do believe this. We've been killing it since 2016. There is no doubt. This is my favorite uniform yet. All black. It's Black Friday. I want all black. We're debuting the new Knighthead on the black on a black helmet. First black helmet game, I think, this year, right, Drew? Because I think what they did. I have no confirmation.
They sourced from a number of different areas. Basically, they just kind of they scraped and gathered.
Okay, because I was wondering if they didn't just paint the helmets.
I was wondering that.
Paint the white helmets.
I was wondering, and that wasn't the case. They were able to gather over a period of time and put a full squad together. Because that was the first thing that was something I thought too, is You take white shell, take all the padding out of it, everything, you strip them completely bare.
Yep.
And dip them. And that's a massive amount of work. And then you put everything back in.
Yeah. It's so much work. You can't do it more than like once a year also.
No, you can't.
But apparently that you're saying that's not the case.
No, it was not the case. They were able to go through a number of different channels and basically scrape together a set, which I don't want to say that scrape together in a bad way, but just, supplies are limited.
You got 100 guys. You got 100 guys that, are trying to get, that you got to get helmets for this game. And they managed to do it. They put the
new Knighthead sticker
the new Knighthead on there. And I love how glossy it
is. As is.
Right.
It's not like the other Nitro one where the other Knighthead where they've done the silhouette or the negative. This is as is, the decal as is. It's got a shine to it, and you've got the white, you've got the gold because it's the full thing. It pops, and that's something that I've always had an issue with when they did the gold Nitro silhouette of Knighthead silhouette on a black helmet is it didn't really pop all that much. You want something that'll stick out, that'll catch your eyes coming by, and this does that because you have the white outline, and then once that white outline, you're past that, you see everything in all of its detail.
We're going to see this again for the Bowl, aren't we?
I would think so.
I would imagine so.
I would think so. Especially, UCF's trying to promote a new mark. Even though it's a secondary mark, it's a new mark. And what better way to promote it than put it on the field, get it out there. I expect them to wear it the next time around. Now and I think the uniform as a whole is absolutely great. I mean, UCF loves wearing black, it's primary color. Blackout on Black Friday makes perfect sense. Comparing to South Florida that does their slime series. And I got to say that slime series uniform is probably the best one that I've seen them do yet. Very clean in comparison. But if I make one knock on UCF's uniform, it's that it's the same black jersey that they always have. I'm
okay with that. I like that jersey.
I like it, but when you don't want to be upstaged in your own home. And
how is that happening?
The one thing I give credit, as I said, I give credit to USF on this is it's fully original. There's no single recycled part of that uniform. Don't look at me like that. Colors, the stripe. And basically, it's like we took our space game and put it on Black Friday. That's kind of what they're doing. Where they're doing.
That literally is what they're doing, because their helmet stripe is the names of all of the members of the inaugural USF football team, which they're celebrating their 25th anniversary for.
Correct.
But they just ripped that idea off the space game. I mean, put names as your stripe. I mean,
I wouldn't say
I'm not saying they shouldn't have honored those guys.
I wouldn't say they ripped it off because as we know from the other decals that we've seen during the year, you don't get that designed and printed in just a couple of weeks. We've seen the first time UCF wore the script helmet. It was the gold script on a white helmet. That was not supposed to be on a white helmet. There was no way, because there was no outline. It blended right in. So you could tell UCF played a number of games with decals that were not meant to be on white shells. They were just stuck with white shells. So I'm
because of the great helmet shortage of 2021.
Oh, but that's part of what makes the season so magical is we live to tell the tale and got to see. But if there was one thing I could have changed, I would have loved to have seen a one-off, something that just like hit the uniqueness home of this game. It's the last one in the bounce house. UCF fans may be happy to see it go, but here's the case. It's always the best attended game every year. It's an important game in the UCF home schedule. It's at the back end of the season for a reason. It gets on national TV. This is even with a bad team in Tampa. This is not coincidence. That's part of the whole rival game. So I think UCF missed a slight opportunity there. However, the black Pegasus jersey is absolutely gorgeous, and the whole body of work, it works. I think UCF actually not doing a helmet stripe was better with this, to highlight the new logo. I think anything else there would just been a distraction.
I wanted to see the sword stripe.
You don't need the sword stripe. All you need is angry new Knighthead that stares in your soul and burns a hole.
I want the sword stripe. That's what I'm saying. I just say it. That's what I'm looking for. Is that all right? Kickoff 3:30 ESPN. Another good luck charm for UCF here. Drew?
They have never lost the game that I covered live.
Never lost a game that you covered live. Roy Philpott and Kelly Stauffer are the broadcast crew.
And UCF has never lost a game that Roy Philpott has called.
I know. It's great. We need these guys here every week. Let's just buy them a condo, like in Altamont or something. And you guys can stay here, cover, do every game. That's what I'm fine with that. It's good for every time they come in. It's good for that. This is exciting. All right. So 18.5. You like last word. You like the number?
I took the spread. I think UCF will cover. USF is just not a good team on the road. They're a little bit lost right now. The defensive coordinator being gone.
Something about this makes me feel like they're going to get their best. Like we're going to get their best shot this week. There's something about, even with the new defensive coordinator. Sometimes, when you fire a coach, the players kind of, I don't know if this is the case with them, but the players are like, "Oh, thank God that guy's gone. Now we can.
It worked
now we
in
can actually play."
2015 for UCF. It might work. It didn't at all.
But the opposite. Actually, that was your head coach, not your coordinator.
Well, they canned everyone at that point.
Yeah, my hope is that it works the same for the Giants, who just fired Jason Garrett 5 minutes ago. So,
there's no salvaging that season.
No, 3-7. Yeah, I guess you're right. Well, 10-7 still in play. You never know.
So weird. 17 games. It just doesn't sound. It doesn't feel.
I don't like it. I like nice round even numbers. 32 teams, 16 games. God, come on, NFL, get it together. All right. When we get back, time to talk a little volleyball because the postseason is coming around. This weekend is the final weekend of the regular season. There is no conference tournament in volleyball. UCF has clinched the American Athletic Conference Championship outright. They will go to the NCAA tournament once again, 4th consecutive NCAA tournament and American Championship for Todd Dagenet's squad. And we get to talk with their best player, McKenna Melville, the GOAT herself, who's leading the NCAA in points and kills and is on her way to being not just one of the greatest volleyball players in UCF history, but has a shot to be one of the greatest statistically in NCAA history, regardless of era. And we get to talk to her right here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
We are back on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff and Eric back with you. Bryson Turner also joining us here for the second segment. And we are flipping the script over to volleyball. So this past weekend, UCF raised the trophy for the 4th consecutive year. They clinched a share of the American Athletic Conference volleyball championship on senior night on Friday by virtue of clobbering Temple. They won the second set against Temple. They swept Temple, but they won the second set 25-2. Which I've received word that the NCAA is checking to see if that's the most lopsided set in the 25-point rally scoring era. It may be. I'm not 100% sure. The NCAA record book only shows lopsided set victories from the 15-point era. But anyway, so they clinched the share of the title. And then Sunday, Houston, who is in second place, lost to SMU, which means UCF clinches the outright title. And that means they also get the NCAA tournament bid because there's no volleyball tournament this year for the American. And part and parcel of that has been, as everybody knows, McKenna Melville. We talked with Anne-Marie Watson a couple of weeks ago, and Anne-Marie was one of the seniors who was honored on Friday night. But when you're talking about UCF volleyball in this era, McKenna Melville is certainly in that first paragraph. She right now is leading the NCAA in points and kills. She is approaching 2,000 kills for her career. She's listed as a senior because this is her fourth year, but she's got one more year of eligibility left. It stands to reason she's going to come back next year. And assuming she does, you never know, but assuming she does, she will be in the running, not just she will likely become not only UCF's all-time leader in kills, passing Renata Menchikova, who played in the pre-rally scoring era, where you can get a lot more kills, but she could slip into the top 10 all-time in NCAA history, regardless of era, which is amazing when you think about it. Eric, you and Bryson talked to her. I mean, she just eats, sleeps, and breathes volleyball. She is a coach's dream, and I don't know what else you could really say. She's the model student athlete.
Well, you could say this. She's now a 4-time conference champion. Her resume's been updated. As you mentioned, joining Tyra Harper, among others, as being the only players in UCF history to say that. And as expected, within the next week, that McKenna will be the first ever 2-time conference player of the year. No UCF players ever won player of the year more than once in any conference. McKenna,
not even Jordan Thompson.
No, I'm talking about UCF history.
UCF. History. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
But it's funny you bring up Jordan Thompson, because one of the topics I talked to Bryson and I talked to McKenna earlier this week was about Jordan Thompson. And what was her going through her mind as she watched Jordan Thompson help lead Team USA to the Olympic gold this summer under Karch Kiraly head coach? Listen to what she had to say about that. But we also talk about winning the 4th straight conference title and how do you compare the 4 championships? Of course, McKenna's grown into the sport of volleyball. Her mom is a legendary high school volleyball coach and a teacher, which is something McKenna also likes to do. Here now, McKenna Melville on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. She now is officially a 4-time American Conference champion. She's been a 3-time, soon-to-be 4-time All-American. She's among the nation's leaders in kills and points. Moving up the UCF record books, we speak of McKenna Melville joining us here. How you doing? That's good. I like your updated resume.
Thank you. It is a very good update to the resume. Over the past few days, doing a lot better. So it's nice to be single-handedly conference champions again this year. So really great.
Well, let's get into that, because obviously Sunday was official. Houston lost, so you're now the outright champions. You clinched the share at home on Friday. What is it? How do you kind of comprehend those last 24 to 48 hours, clinching the share of the title at home so you're able to celebrate in front of the fans, and then finding out on Sunday that you've won it outright 4 straight years now, you've won a conference championship?
Yeah, it's really great. It's a little different because you never know exactly when or how you're going to win. So I think it's kind of funny. I woke up from a nap on Sunday to, we're conference champions. And I was like, oh, nice. That's really great to see. So it's kind of funny that you're not actually the one playing in it. It's just kind of how the cards fold throughout the conference. But it's really nice that we did our part. We worked where we needed to. We performed when we needed to be able to clinch it on a day that we had off.
It's 4 conference championships. You've won them in so many different ways. You've won conference championships in dramatic fashions. You won regular seasons. I mean, does one feel different than the other? Do they rank the same? How do you compare these 4 conference championships?
Yeah, they're all obviously equally great because you're going to the NCAA tournament. I think the conference tournament style is a little more tense, a little more stress. You know what you're playing for, everything like that. So I like that kind of style a little bit more because that's a competitive nature in me. However, being able just to play every team and knowing we have to perform at that championship level every single game is a little bit different than, we have to be in the top 4 in order to try and get to these games.
Speaking of performing at a championship level, you guys are going to be going up against Houston with the pressure of the conference championship now off your shoulders, are you guys looking to maybe get a little bit of revenge, considering Houston's the source of that one in your loss column for conference play?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's my main goal. I think this weekend and this week coming up is really big to start getting our heads on the right path to win to prepare for the NCAA tournament. I think it's really important now that we have the conference tournament under our belt. Let's see how far we can go. So to get everyone's minds on the right page, know that there's extra stress involved, put stressors on younger kids as they get into these tough situations. So when it happens in a few weeks, we know what to prepare for.
Tell me about how you all handle the expectations. You're coming in as 3-time defending champions. There's high expectations. You know, you're the favorites. You have a target on your back. And look, internally, you all have high expectations for yourselves. Just talk about the daily grind of that and winning the league again with all of that and the challenges that come with that.
Yeah, target keeps getting bigger. And I think we just keep accepting it, which is really awesome. But we do hold each other every day and practice to a high standard. I know there's times where we stop what we're doing and we say, okay, we need to get our heads on straight again, because what we're doing right now is not going to beat any team that we're playing in conference yet alone, the NCAA. So we have to get our minds straight and work towards that next goal. I think it's really important to keep working one step farther, one step more, not be complacent with where we're at. Yes, we're at the top of it, the AAC. However, what's the next goal? What's the next step? How individually are you going to make yourself better so your teammates can trust you?
Speaking of with conference championships, you among a couple of your teammates are the first UCF volleyball players to be a part of 4 straight conference championship teams since the five conference tournament stretch in the 90s. You, Amber Olsen, Anne-Marie Watson, Arissa Moravec, and Catherine Westlich. What has it been like to play with these women over the past 4 years and to see that success be able to be sustained throughout these 4 years?
Yeah, I think it's awesome because you have such a great bond, not only on the court, but outside the court as well, which brings your trust and your level of comfort playing with these players even more. I think you can always trust on these 5 players, and it grows. I think your trust level grows and your confidence grows within each player as years progress. So I know like the freshmen come in and we might not trust them as much, but as they keep playing and as they keep going, they understand how they're going to play, and other people around naturally fall into what they're going to do and how they're going to react.
Tell me about this team, how it's different from the previous teams, even though, I mean, from the outside, hey, I have a lot of players coming back. They're pretty similar, but every team's different. I'll never forget this year watching you all at Cincinnati, and you dropped the first 2 sets, and there was like no concern, no panic, at least from watching at all on the court. It's like, hey, we're fine, we're going to be good. And you came back, won 3 straight sets, which I thought was super impressive and kind of highlighted this team. Just tell me the differences you see in this team compared to the past teams.
Yeah, I think we're super even-keeled right now, super level-headed. We know where we're at. We know that we have to keep pushing. I think we have great leaders on the court right now, being able to say, hey, we're not going to ride the high wave and we're not going to ride the low wave. We're just going to stay even and keep pushing. I think that's really important. Like Cincinnati, we knew that we were off in the first 2 sets. I remember sitting down and I was like, okay, everybody knows I'm off right now. I said it to him. I was like, everyone knows I'm off. Hold me down. Work your way through it. I'll get through it, but I need your guys' help. And I think being really honest with your team, especially the young girls, being honest, like, hey, I'm having an off day. It's okay to have an off day, but I need your other 5 people on the court to help me out. I think that's important. I think we're working really well together. We can look each other in the eyes and be like, hey, you're fine because I got your back. You might not be playing great, but I'm going to help you out. So I think that's really important.
You know, one other reason that this season is different from the others is that this is the second season you've been playing this calendar year. So what has it been like to play this season directly after the spring season? And
yeah, it's actually pretty exhausting. I think you don't really have that spring season to kind of recruit, get your body strong again, get your mind right. So I think it's really important. I think we all know that our bodies are tired, which is another reason that brings us closer and keeps us pushing. Obviously, I think this is the first year in a while that we've had a normal type season with COVID and everything. So it's kind of fun to go out there and play. It's fun to have a normal season back, to go on the road, to travel. All those things are fun to be around again. And I think we're taking it not for granted and just keep pushing forward.
We talked in April. You had a great year in April. You mentioned it. It was unique. It was a shortened season. So you basically played, a season and a half, 2 seasons in a calendar year, which is unique. I mean, you're going to remember this forever. Yet you're a better player now, which is kind of crazy. Tell me about how are you a better player today than you were in April? Is it a mental thing, a technique thing, a physical thing? Take me through how you've gotten better since April.
Well, every day I push myself on the court, off the court. I think that's really important to have your mind right as well as your body. So just to be able, I know freshman year to senior year, how you're feeling yourself is really important. And I finally learned the right things to put in your body that's going to get you going. And I think that's important for every kid to learn. Everyone's different, but I found something that works for me to keep my body going straight. And then I think the biggest thing is that we just have more control this year on the court. Amber's running a 5-1, which keeps me and her on the court at all times, which is really big. Again, that core group, that core value, I think is holding true a little bit longer. And it's also, I have more pressure to do more because of that, those rows 3, 4, and 5, where she's in the front row with me. So we have to hold it down a little bit better.
Let's talk about this group. Obviously you have the Amory Watsons, the Moravec. You've played with them forever. What's it like to play with them and share? I mean, you've all built a legacy here in a lot of ways. Bryson mentioned, the 90s was the last time UCF Volleyball has won 4 straight conference championships. I've run into people that have told me they've gone to volleyball matches because of you and because of the team and the success and how fun you are to watch. Are you all aware of that, the legacies you're kind of making here? I know it's in the moment, so maybe you don't, but you've made an impact on and off the court.
Yeah, we don't try and look at necessarily the numbers and the points and the kills, blocks, all that stuff, but it's how we look to the outside world, I think, is really important. How you portray yourself and how you look to your teammates. I know we do really well and do a very good job of making sure that we are close as a team. I think teams get in struggle bus phase as they keep going throughout the season when there's more drama on the team than positive things. So we've been really good in the locker room this year, keeping a good positive note on things. And then also getting out into the community, saying hi to little kids. I think UCF Volleyball Camp is where we get to see and meet a lot of kids. And just to put a smile on kids' face, I think is really cool and really important in life. And I know like Narissa Moravec wants to be a teacher. Amory Watson's a coach. I want to be a teacher. So to go through things like that and have those 3 or 4 people being able to go out to the kids, I think is really cool.
You seem to really like making an impact in this Orlando community, but of course you are a Minnesota native. What has it been like to, it's such a contrast being from the far north coming down south. So what has it been like living in Orlando these past 4 years for you?
Yes. So I am definitely a homebody. So to go across country is a little different for me. But we figured out really quick. I know I talked with my mom at length about it. It's a 3-hour plane ride. And if there's a family in Orlando, you'll be okay. And I definitely do have that family atmosphere here, which is really cool. And that's the reason why I love Orlando so much. People around me are really awesome. And then I'm able to go out into the community the longer I'm staying here. People know me. I can talk with them and have good conversations. And I think that's really cool. That slowly you're building the network of the Orlando area.
So you're talking now. That family atmosphere obviously had to develop over time. So what exactly made you decide to choose UCF in the first place? Did you consult with your mom about it? And if so, what were those conversations kind of like, and what ultimately made you decide to come here?
Yeah, so I was a sophomore, so I was very naive and didn't know a ton about school, didn't know what I liked. I still didn't know what I liked as a junior in college, so it took me a while. But I looked mostly, I wanted to go to a big school. I knew that. And I wanted to be able to make an impact. So I think those are the 2 big things that I found here at UCF is big school, and I was able to make an impact. I didn't know at the time I was going to be a hitter. I thought I was going to be a libero. But to be able to come in and have that family atmosphere is huge. Everyone here instantly said, Mac, you're going to be welcomed. Everything's going to be fine. We got your back. And I think that's super important. And I know Jordan Pingle did a great job my freshman year of holding me down, being like, this is how we do it here. So it's really cool to do that. And then now I'm able to do that with the younger girls because Jordan is no longer here.
Yeah, you talk about the younger girls. Chloe Shear, a sophomore, and Caitlin Grimes, a freshman, have both been playing at libero this season. And considering how much you seem to really like the position, have you been like kind of advising or helping them out with the position? And just what's it been like kind of mentoring these younger players?
Yeah, I think it's really fun. Obviously, I don't want to say too much because that's the coach's job, but I think it's fun to encourage them, fun to give them a little bit of hardness, push at them, poke them and prod them until they finally crack every once in a while. But I think it's fun to push them mentally, push them physically, ask them the why did you do it like that, or compliment them when they finally did do something really great. And I think that's super important, the compliment aspect as a leader, as somebody who's trying to grow into the position, help them, make them understand why they did it correctly is really cool. And then just make sure that they have confidence in themselves, show that you have confidence in them and that everything they do is not horrible. They're young. They might be dumb sometimes, but they're damn good volleyball players. So it all works out.
For those that may not be aware, your mom's a volleyball coach, a legend, a great, successful volleyball coach in Minnesota. So you grew up in this. And I'm wondering, you mentioned that as being part of being a leader, how much of that has helped you in you being a leader and talking to the players, knowing what the coach's perspective is, and obviously at the same time being a player? What I would imagine that's how they help you. Yeah, it's definitely helped. Grew up with volleyball, grew up with coaches, grew up with the whole thing. So to be able to go into a conversation, it might be different if I go talk with Anne-Marie versus if I go and talk to Amber. Amber and I are okay with tough love. We can yell and scream at each other. Whereas some people just might need a hug. And I think that's what makes a really good leader, makes a really good coach, is understanding how you're going to get your girls to play at the best of their ability. And that's what I'm trying to do as a leader, is how am I going to get Caitlin and Nar and anyone who's on the court to perform at the best when we need them. And I think they're doing a great job right now of performing at their best.
With your mom being a coach, you have Coach Dagenais in your life, and then you have Coach Mom. So so as you've gone through college, what has it been like to kind of talk to your mom, like about your game and how exactly you kind of, balance it? Because obviously you have your mom and your mom's an important person in your life, but you also have your coach.
Yeah. So we've said from a very young age, she was my coach in high school, that when she's on the court with me, she's coach. And when she's off the court with me, she's mom. So for the past 4 years, she's been mom. So we haven't really talked a ton about game-like situations or how this is going, how that's going. She more talks about how you did or mom stuff. Oh, good game, honey. Nice job. Every once in a while, we'll talk in the volleyball talk. Oh, shoot, did you see this play? Or we'll talk about rotations because she understands rotations, or why did somebody line up the way they did? Or Mac, you had line open all game and you didn't swing at it once. Like, what were you doing? Stuff like that. She'll give me crap for every once in a while, but her and I do really well of keeping things separate to make sure that the mom piece is still there, not just the coach piece.
Is that easy or hard for her? I mean, because she is a coach, right? And it's easy. It's only natural, right? If she throws an opinion, I mean, it's got to be hard to, obviously she knows being a mom's the most important thing, but she's a coach. Like, I'm sure a part of her insight's like, oh, what do you, I want to say this, but you got to say, no, don't want to hear it. Don't want to hear it, right? Is like, how much of that goes on?
Well, there's definitely times where, like, in the game, she's like, oh, I would have done this, and this different. But I think she does a really good job. She always says, but I'm not the one at practice. And I think at practice is where you figure out who you want to play, where you want to play, stuff like that. But it does give me another insight, a little bit more of the whys, and I love to know the whys. My coaches dread it because I'm always asking, why? Why are we doing this? Why? But I think it makes you into a tougher coach. I think my coaches have learned a little bit more about volleyball because of it, and I've learned a little bit more about coaching because of the whole atmosphere that I have. Because you recently made the Oklahoma academic team, and as tremendous as you're on the court, you're very proud of that. Like as long as I've gotten to know you, you take your academics very seriously. And I'm curious, because you're a competitive person, are you as competitive in a classroom than you are in a volleyball court? Like, are you just as mad at yourself if you don't ace an exam compared to, like, if you don't play, if you just play a set or something like that? Kind of give me the comparison of McKenna, the student, versus McKenna, the volleyball player there. Yeah, definitely more of a competitive person on the court. But I do hold myself to a super high standard in the classroom. It's hard because you're only working with yourself. It's me versus the teacher. most of the time. So to be able to do well, I think is really hard. But I do hold myself to a high standard. I work hard. You have to study a lot. I think I'm in finance right now. So the last semesters are kind of hard. I'm in my last semester of finance. But I think it's really important to put school first, because at the end of the day, volleyball is going to go away. And what you're left with is either an education or not an education. And I think education is super important. My mom is a high school math teacher. She's ingrained it at such a young age of school comes first. It's school, sports, friends. That was the order that we were allowed to do things in growing up. So my brother and I would get at the kitchen table until 9:30, 10 o'clock at night doing schoolwork for high school even. So to be able to have the academic side, I think, has always been a part of me. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Obviously, now I want to be a teacher, so it's going absolutely nowhere. But I think education's important, and I'm going to ingrain it into every kid that I talk to, that education is important.
Well, I didn't realize your mom was a teacher as well.
Yeah.
It's almost like you were prepared for the life of a student athlete, which is balancing academics with, playing a sport, which is not easy, and with the responsibility. But I feel like you almost grew up into it, kind of getting prepared for it. Is that accurate?
Yes. I mean, I've been given tough love my whole life. My dad and my mom both are tough love. Got to do it right, or you didn't do it well enough. And I think that's really cool. That's really important. To be pushed not only athletically, but also on the personal side of life, trying to get through your struggles. Things aren't just handed to you. You have to work through it. I think that's really important. You come to college and you don't know how to cook. You don't know how to do your laundry. You're going to struggle. And I think the struggle is really important, but I think being prepared so you're not struggling as much is really cool.
We're speaking with McKenna Melville here on the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. I'm curious, this summer, they had the Olympics volleyball. Jordan Thompson, who you know very well, legendary battles. My favorite, the best volleyball match I've ever seen in person was the 2019 Conference Championship when you beat Cincinnati in that classic 5-setter at home. That building was going crazy. It's one of my favorite events that I've ever been a part of there. I was fortunate to be there. That's what came to my mind when I saw Jordan Thompson representing the red, white, and blue, helping them win the gold. I know she got hurt during the event, so she didn't finish it, but she had a great tournament while she was hurt. I'm sure you followed the Olympics. What went through your mind when you saw her as part of Team USA there as somebody that competed against her? Are you thinking to yourself, wow, that could be me maybe down the road 4-8 years from now? Or what goes through your mind when you see her and you see her in the Olympics?
I just think how proud I am. I know she's from Minnesota as well. She went to the same club I went to. But just how proud I am of her. I think it's really cool. It doesn't matter the school she went to, but she came out as a true college graduate and shined there. I think being surrounded by some of the great people and the great athletes that she's around, and she did exceptional. She went one step above everyone else. And I think that's super cool to see. It's really fun that we got to play against her and with her. But now that she got to take that next step. So it seems to me like that coaching style that Coach Karai has is working with her. The setting coaches that they have for her are really helping her out. She's getting swings that she didn't have swings against. She has so many more options, I think, now at USA Volleyball. I think she's going to thrive for so many more years. I think USA Volleyball is lucky that they found her because I know for a time there she was just kind of hidden. So I'm glad she started to shine, and I'm glad she started to show who she really is. She's doing a great job.
By the way, I think you could be an analyst for volleyball, too, on the side. That was a pretty good breakdown.
You played every position, so you have that down.
Exactly. It's a great point. You played every position growing up. You weren't, which we've talked about in the past. That's helped you kind of think the game, right? You've played the libero, a setter. And I want to ask you, because defensively, I think it's underrated of your game. We focus on your kills and, all that. But your defense is good. You're one of the few handful of players that have had over 1,000 digs and 1,000 kills. You've been assigned at times this year to the opposing team's best player to mark him. Just talk about your defense, because I don't know if people really are aware what an all-around talent, great player you become on the defensive end and offensive. You're not just an offensive player.
Yeah, I think having all different options is really cool. I love the defensive side. I think in volleyball, at least for my game, I have two different roles. I have the offensive side where I can swing away and kill, and then once I go back to serve, it's okay, now I'm the defensive side. I think it's really awesome to be able to separate it. I always rely on my defense. I always rely on my serve receive because that's something that I've grown up doing. I've grown up passing. I've grown up digging, everything like that. And then to transition into the hitting game, I think is really cool because now I'm able to see the game at another level. I know where that defender is going because I was a defender for so long. And then on the contrary to that, I am a hitter, so I know what's open and I'm thinking or I'm expecting, oh, this is where they should hit. Now, do they ever hit there? Probably not. And I'm wrong more than I'm right. But it does help that I have the height because I know like our little ones, we call them our little ones, the three in the back row, Dreszy, Caitlin, and Chloe. They get back there and they have to use every inch of their body that they have where if I misstep, I can still make it to a ball. So I think it's really cool. But again, you try and take what you know and you try and ingrain it in those little ones as well. But I think defense wins games, and I think defense is the biggest part of volleyball. And I don't think everyone recognizes that because of the big boom at the end with a good kill or a big block. They don't recognize – if you don't recognize a libero, she's doing a phenomenal job. If you never notice her, she's doing everything that she should be doing. And I think that's really big. A lot of people in the outside volleyball world don't understand that. But if little Caitlin is sitting back there digging balls left and right, you're not going to notice her as much as if she's shanking a ball left and right. So
that's pretty good. I'm very curious from this team's approach because I remember I spoke to Jordan when you were a freshman, and she told me about you. She's like, keep her in mind, watch for her. She's going to be incredible. I'm curious of the young players on this team that haven't been through all 4 championships. Who are some of the players that stands out to you that you've kind of helped train and you think, hey, this is going to lead this program here down the road here in the future? Watch out for this name.
Yeah, I think Caitlin Grimes, she's going to be a little stud. She's got it going for her. And then I really think Heidi Bondi is going to shine. I think she's going to do great in this offseason to get cooking and rooking when we need her. And she's going to do really well next year on the outside for us. And I hope she's ready to work hard because in spring I'm going to be her little wing woman. We're going to get after it together. So,
Dagenet has said how he wanted to get her some reps at the libero position. She's been starting there for the past several games. How would you say she's been handling that, especially as a true freshman?
Yeah, she's doing great. I give props to both her and Chloe. Chloe had the libero spot and then switched out of it, and she's handled it perfectly. I know at times there's been some liberos in the past who, when they do get switched from it, crumble completely. And I think Chloe's done a great job of still holding her ground, still doing exactly what Chloe does best. And then Caitlin has just shined. She learned that she's comfortable. I remember the first game at ECU, she was all over the place. I was like, Caitlin, honey, you got to just sit down for me here. Like, you're running across the court. I always joke with her that she's going to have 1,000 more steps. We should put a step meter on her, see how many steps she has in game, because she's just going to blow us out of the water. But she's really calmed down. She's a great vocal leader on the court. Great little energizer over there, but she's holding it down well. She's doing a great job.
I want to ask you, like, you're being compared to like the Tyra Harpers, the Renata Menchikovas, who I don't remember if you were at their Ring of Honor ceremony or not. I know they were honored. You probably weren't. That was probably before you were here. But they're on the rafters. You see them on the Ring of Honor. Their names are there. You see the names there. Jenny Frank is a Hall of Famer, etc. I know you don't focus on those things, but you have to have some pride there that you're being recognized with some of the greats in the history of this program. I mean, you're in that conversation there. How does that make you feel when that's what people are talking about you that way?
Yeah, it's really cool. It's definitely an honor, and it's really fun that I'm still playing and I can still keep working towards those goals. And I think it's also really cool that we get to bring more people in. I think it's not just the McKenna Melville, but it's how many people can I tack on with me and drag with. I think that's really cool. And I think that shows for the past 4 years for the conference tournament, it's, Jordan Pingle grabbed as many girls as she could and said, let's go, we're getting on the train. And I think that's really cool to have a leader now. Hopefully we can keep pushing. We can keep getting more and more on the train, but as many kids as we can get on that train to keep winning is a good sign.
You and Dagenet said before how, your plans are still up in the air for what you're going to do next. That's this. We've already addressed that. But regardless of what you do, I think it's not an exaggeration to say that you made a huge impact on this team these past 4 years. So how exactly would you like to be remembered by this team and by this by Knight Nation as you move on to the next phase of your life, whenever that might happen?
I think to be recognized more than just volleyball. I think it's really, you have your kills, you got your game and everything like that, but how did she outsmart the game? How did she care for her teammates? How did she look to the stands and see other people? And then at camps, how do you work? I think helping others along the way, coaching little girls to love the game is so important, especially for this game. So just the love of volleyball, I think, is something to take away. It's something that I love doing. I love going to practice still every day. So I think that's super important.
Couple last things here. Obviously, you've had experience. You've been to the NCAA tournament before. You got 2 matches leading up to that. What are the keys and really for this team, the experience from the past? What do you take from that will help you this year for this team?
Yeah. Foot on the gas as hard as you can and don't ever slow down. That is the goal. That's my goal. Coaches don't always like my goal, but that is what we're going with. And I think it's really important. You can take a little breather, but other than that, push as hard as you can at all times. Practice, weights, class, games, doesn't matter. You better be pushing hard. So,
have you athletes have always told me this, pro and college athletes, about being in the zone where they can do no wrong. How often do you feel like you've been in the zone? Do you have a match and moment in particular where you're like, yeah, this day there was no wrong I could do. This was the zone. What is it like to be in the zone?
Oh, yeah, it's fun. There's definitely times when you're in the zone and then you'll do some stupid error and then the zone's gone. But there are games. I would never say do no wrong. But I know when we played SMU this past time at home and Wichita at home, I think everyone was kind of in the zone. We were going to get this done and we were going to get it done as fast as possible. We did a great job. Again, defense wins games and defense started those games off. And then our offense just kind of clicked into place from there. And after that, everyone was in the zone. Everyone was pedal to the metal at that point.
Have you ever been a part of a 25-2 set like you were against Temple in that time? You talk about the zone. You all were in the zone that stretch.
Yeah, I think there was one game in high school. I think it was 25-1. But other than that, I have never been a part of something like that.
That's incredible. Very locked in and tremendous play. And it's been a joy to watch your team play. We're excited to see you moving forward. Congratulations on the success you've had to this point. And we're wishing you well here moving forward. You're amazing to watch. And I'm so excited for you because I think you're going to have more accolades coming up. And I know you don't like talking about it, but you've earned the accolades that's about to come to you. So we'll just leave it as that. McKenna Melville joining us here on the Black and Gold. Thank you so much for doing this and joining us.
Yes, thank you so much.
And thanks again to McKenna for joining us. That was a fun conversation.
It sure was.
So much smart. I mean, first he brings the IQ level up a level in the show. Jeff, I want to ask you this because, she's a 3-time All-American honorable mention. We both believe should be better than that. I don't know when that gets announced. You might know the schedule. There has never been a UCF volleyball player in the Division I era. There has been, and if you go back to Division II, but there's never been a volleyball player in Division I that has not been better than an honorable mention All-American. Now, an honorable mention All-American is still very impressive, so I don't want to make it sound like I'm not. What I'm saying is McKenna is going to break that ceiling, should anyway.
I don't know how you don't. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves at this point. I'm pulling them up right now as we speak. Right, by the way, as we're speaking, that UCF has 2 matches to go in the regular season. They have road matches against Tulane and Houston, and then it's tournament time. So, but looking right now, McKenna right now, I have to correct myself. She's actually 2nd in the country in points right now. She keeps trading back and forth with Dominique Washington and Florida A&M.
Hey, 2 Florida players.
She would have been right up there, except for the fact that the Temple match went so quickly. She only got 10 kills in the match.
Well, and we talked about that. She said in high school, I think she was part of a 25-1 score, but she doesn't remember anything other than that.
Yeah.
Coach
She's
Ashley also said he wanted to spread the ball around a lot on offense as well. So, which honestly makes it even more remarkable to me that even though he was spreading the ball around, McKenna Melville still got a double-double in that game.
Yeah. And the other funny part about that was, Anne-Marie Watson, they were trying to get Anne-Marie into the match to try and get her a little bit more action. And in that second set, UCF won 16 consecutive points in that set. They couldn't get her in the rotation. There were literally only 3 rotations in the entire set because Temple couldn't hit a point. But anyway, back to McKenna. She's number 2 in the country in points, 5th in points per set, 2nd in kills, also behind Dominique Washington. And Washington's, I think, has a 22 kill lead on her right now at 557. McKenna has 535.
How do they do it in volleyball? Is it first team, second team, honorable mention? Is that what they do, or do
I believe they do? I'll have to double check. I believe they do have a first and second team.
Well, regardless, but she's going to be
there. She's got to be there.
Yeah, it's got to be at that level.
Because and here's the reason: not just because she's so good offensively, because she's so good defensively,
which we talked about.
She's 4th all time in digs at UCF. Digs. She's an outside hitter.
Right. And Bryson and I talked to her about that, right? Bryson, I mean, she actually likes playing defense more than offense.
Well, remember,
she did. She initially thought she was going to be playing libero when
she was recruited as a libero, and then the story goes, like, in between her junior and senior year of high school, she grew like 5 or 6 inches or something like that. And Jenny Maurer, who recruited her, went out there and saw her. They're like, "What happened to you?" And she went back to Todd. She's like, "What do we do here?" She was supposed to be a libero. She kind of outgrew college libero. Because she's 6 feet tall, and Todd said, "Well, let's bring her in anyway, and see what happens." And lo and behold, she just starts killing everything in sight. And she's not, and that's the thing that I think is so great about her as a player, is she's not a one-trick pony. She's the best two-way player I've ever seen in any way, shape, manner, or form at UCF. We've seen a lot of players come and get double-doubles. She's the best two-way player I've ever seen at UCF, and maybe at anywhere.
Well, it's her. I mean, Todd even said this in his press conference. I think he told Bryson at the presser, Tyra Harper's the standard in the program history, what she's accomplished.
But she was a middle blocker.
Which kind of makes it insane what she accomplished, by the way. But
just
to me,
the middle every time. Yeah,
right,
it's incredible.
Right. Hall of Famer Renata Menchikova is also in the conversation. Remember, keep in mind with Menchikova's stats, she only did it in 3 years. She only played 3 years, not 4.
Right.
It's hard to compare, for example, a Jenny Frank who played a completely different position, right? Or a Jordan Pingle who's probably the greatest libero. I don't know how it's tough to. It's kind of like in football. It's tough to compare a linebacker to a quarterback. So, and then let's also apologize in advance to Laura Smith, who is the greatest player of the Division II era. It's hard to compare her to the D1
Division
era.
II AIAW, and Laura was a middle.
Well, don't forget though, because who gets underappreciated in all of this, and that's Miriam Metzkes. Because before this season, she was 3rd all time in both kills and digs.
A travesty that she is not in the Hall of Fame at UCF. Travesty, a massive error there. Yeah. Probably the biggest. That's why we keep bringing her up for that reason. Delana Sarden was a great player. Kia Bright, let's just throw those two out too. But you're right. I think McKenna's top 3 at a minimum. She's in Mount Rushmore. And that's why this is going to be exciting. The selection show Sunday night, I believe it's 8:30 Eastern. We're going to find out where they go. There's actually some intrigue here, Jeff, of what the committee is going to do, because this has been a great year for the state of Florida in volleyball. Yeah. When you consider there's 4 teams in the top 25 RPI. I don't know what direction they're going to go. Does Florida host? Does Miami host? Does Florida State host? Does 2 of those teams host? Does none of them host? That's why this thing is kind of a little more unpredictable than normal. I still think it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, this is going to be. There's as much intrigue going into this as it used to be every year like the same thing, right? Like, they're going to ship UCF to Gainesville, and it's going to be Florida against who cares, and then whatever.
Florida Gulf Coast is 32, by the way,
right? And then whoever the second best Florida team from a Power 5 conference is would play UCF in the 2-3 in Gainesville. Well, here's the latest RPI. This is matches through November 21st. Miami is 11th. They're at 23-4. Florida State is 14th at 19-7. Florida is 15th, right behind them at 20-6.
Unbelievable.
UCF is 25th at 24-6. And then you're right, Florida Gulf Coast, who night volleyball fans like shudder at the mere mention of them, they're 31st. And by the way, they brought back all their players
and they could arguably be a 3 seed if they don't get squished into being a 4. And that's what we don't know.
They're 26 and 5. So we don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I think that there's a possibility that UCF could be a number 2 seed in one of the pods outside of the state of Florida. I really do think there's a possibility.
Well, one of those Florida teams is going to have to be out of the state. That's assuming a Florida team hosts, which, I think one will, but you're right. One of those teams in Florida is going to have to travel out of the state. Who that is, who knows? You've got 16 different teams are going to host, and three Florida teams are in the top 16 in the RPI. So, what you would think. I mean, with committees, you never know.
Now, here's what's we talk about geography, right, Eric? You like to talk about that a lot.
Yep.
There's only UCLA is the only Pac-12 team in the top 10. So there's one West Coast host, okay? Then you got to go down to BYU at 17, and then Washington at 18. So there's 3 West Coast potential hosts right there. And then the next West Coast team that you see is Oregon, and their RPI is 23rd. Utah's RPI is Utah is at 24 in the RPI. So, this is tough, man. You have Creighton, who's 12th, and Nebraska, who's 13th.
Well, and Penn State is not even in the top 16.
Which one of those two teams are you sending? Are you saying too bad? You got to go on the road,
right? No, okay? That's just
one of them's going to be hosting. Oh, you can only host one of them.
I agree. So this is going to be very interesting, and this is my yearly rant. I do this every semester. Get rid of the 400-mile radius. One of the things where the committee, we criticize the committee.
I think they kind of have no choice but to make an exception about it now.
Well, but I'm saying if you want a true seeding, right? Because we're going to be upset with seedings and things like that. Get rid of the 400-mile radius. Otherwise, you're never going to have a true seeding on that. And look, the RPI is flawed. UCF dropped 5 spots for crushing Temple in South Florida. That's not a good
because
thing.
Temple and South Florida are no good,
right? But there's nothing they can do about it.
In the conference.
They can't cancel. It's a conference. There's nothing they can do, and that's my issue with it. You shouldn't be punished for playing those matches.
I agree with you, but if they played those 2 matches 3 weeks ago, UCF's RPI would have gone down anyway.
And that's not good.
If they played somebody else just based on their strength of schedule.
Right, but they have no choice. It's not like a non-conference game where, hey, you chose to play that game. Conference, you have no choice. Like I joked years ago in softball when UCF played UConn, a snow out was actually good because it actually improved their schedule strength. So that has to be tweaked. I do know this.
If you went to like a net and volleyball, the same exact thing would have happened.
There's more things they've taken into that.
Hold on now. Here's a question though, because this week, luckily the conference game championships all lucked up, so they don't have to worry about that going into these last 2 games. But their last regular season match, I've been talking about this for weeks now, is they're going up against Houston again, the source of their 1 loss in their conference record. So here's my question. Does their RPI increase if they go and defeat Houston on the road?
No, it goes down. It goes down.
No, the Houston one. No, the Houston slightly. It won't improve.
Houston's 51.
Yeah.
Now, Houston needs that match more than the UCF does, obviously. It kind of doesn't matter. But nonetheless, UCF wants to pay Houston back big time. I know that much. Okay?
Well, and McKenna mentioned that. I mean, they've got that match circled. And Tulane's tricky, too. Look, this is the thing about this week.
They don't need that. UCF doesn't need that match, but they want that match.
They want the match. Well, and look, it's important to build momentum into the tournament. Get that balance offense. How many years we talk? Coach Todd. We could talk as much as this has been a McKenna segment. At the end of the day, this team's success in the postseason is going to come down to the balance. Do they have balance? Because when you get to the tournament, the opponent's going to focus on McKenna. Does that balance offense that Todd wants? Is it ready to go when the lights are on? And that's, I think, what this week is about. That's what he's kind of been building on. They have the depth. That's going to be a key factor. We'll get into more of this next week once we know the opponents. But I think that's a key factor this week is I want to see some balance offense here to show that they're ready. And I think they are with the leadership. So I think that's a big factor in this when they get to the NCAAs.
Well, we saw that in the Temple match. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sorry, Bryce. I was going to say we saw that in the Temple match because we kind of had no choice, first of all. and McKenna was kind of a coach on the floor. She kind of told, she also told Todd, like at one point in that match, like, get Heidi Bondi in here, because she was, who Todd, Coach Todd is thinks very highly of, is very highly recruited. She could be the next McKenna, which is what they're thinking. I don't know if you ever really can have a next McKenna, but all the way around. But she's really super talented, and and that's the thing, and that kind of spoke to, I think, what makes McKenna so great is she's a coach on the floor. She's we talked about her history. Yeah. She is like having another assistant out there. Bryson, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, what I was gonna say, and you kind of said what it kind of made a point.
I stole your thunder, didn't I? My bad.
Is that we did see that during the Temple game, but we didn't just see Heidi Bondi. We also saw several other players get some playing time. Also, over the past couple of games, Caitlin Grimes has been getting some play at libero. She's been doing really great. Got 10 digs, I believe, for in the Temple.
She's taken over the libero position. She has been a fine, man. She's been great. She guaranteed all freshman team.
I agree. Yes, I agree with that. And I am very, very excited to see what she can do down the road, because if she can be here 4 years, then I'm very interested to see how she can stack up to Jordan Pingle. That'll be very interesting.
Look at this, Jeff. You've created a monster here, Jeff. You've created a volleyball monster.
But I do want to make sure I get this out, because I say it in my nightcap. So go read about it for the full thing for why I did this. But I just want to be able to say props to Catherine Wesselich, because she got some playing time in the Temple match, got 6 kills, summer festive season. She didn't really play that much this season because she's a middle blocker, and unfortunately Narissa Moravec and Claudia Dillon are on her team. But for those that are like, Wesselich didn't get playing time, she's not that good. She is in the top 10 all time in career block assists. She is 1 away from 7th on that list. The fact that, and this is something that I probably will reiterate over the course of the next couple of weeks, is that this team has some of the most stacked players as far as a career goes that I think we've seen since the 90s. We have McKenna Melville, who's top 10 all time in careers and digs. We have Amber Olsen, who's top 10 all time in assists. We have Anne-Marie Watson and Narissa Moravec, arguably 2 of the best blockers this program has ever seen, and they're on the same team. And then you have the young guns in Chloe Shear and Caitlin Grimes with transfer Claudia Dillon. This is a who's who of a volleyball roster right here, if there ever was one.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And it's amazing to see, like, the talent of this recruiting class that Todd put together, come to fruition in the way that they have. And now we see them, all getting ready to move on. Catherine Wesselich. Now her name popped up in the transfer portal. She deserves to finish her career somewhere else. I think she has 1 more year of eligibility left, and I think she's going to go get her master's degree.
Tali Marmon, I believe.
Tali Marmon as well, who's finishing her degree and walked on senior day along with Catherine. And she's going to finish her career as well and get her master's elsewhere, which as a student is like what you want to do, right? So, they all contributed so much to the program, and but even with that talent coming in, man, it's just like amazing. This team does not rebuild; it reloads now. And with the Big 12 coming in, I think it's going to be a tremendous boost. I think we're going to start to see a real blossoming of this program once they get to the Big 12. We're already seeing it in recruiting from what I've been hearing, with the amount of interest that recruits are showing in UCF on a national level. Now that they're going to be in the Big 12, they're going to be competing against some real volleyball powerhouses. So, it's the future. As good as this team is right now, 72 of the last 76 against American Athletic Conference opponents, it's only going to get better.
8:30 selection show, ESPNU.
Yep, ESPNU. Yeah, this is going to be fun. So 8:30 on what's the day again, Eric?
Yeah, Sunday, ESPNU. Sunday. 8:30. Right.
So I'll be watching that, and you should be too, because who knows? I mean, I don't think UCF is going to get the chance to host, unfortunately.
No.
Unfortunately, Florida is just way too crowded in volleyball. The fact that when Florida A&M has a player with the most kills in the country, and then right after her is McKenna, It's
by the way, the NCAA, if the NCAA wanted to think outside the box in terms of travel, Eric Lopez, they would allow UCF to host.
Why?
Because of location.
Yeah, that's pretty. I mean, you're going with the
football state. It's a volleyball state.
Yeah, I mean, that's a predetermined route. Teams will never go for a predetermined site.
No, I'm just saying, but I'm saying, like, if they really want it to be, if they're all about, like, hey, we want to keep the travel distance logical for everybody in a post-COVID world.
Yeah, like last year they did it all in Omaha,
UCF,
but
I'm saying UCF would host that pod. Would be one of the 16 hosts.
I mean, they could do Miami.
It's closer to no, because Florida State can't come to Miami.
Sure. No, they're in the same conference, obviously. But Florida can go to Miami, Florida Gulf. I mean, all the same teams can go the same.
UCF is more centrally located than Gainesville.
Okay, but Barry,
I'm just saying.
If
they wanted to think outside the box,
they
let
don't.
UCF host. I'm just saying.
Or we just get rid of the RPI and true seedings, and then we don't have to worry about locations.
Well, I mean, they're going to use.
There is this thing called airplane. There's this thing called the plane that has been a great invention. I would, that people use nowadays.
You're right. I'm not saying you're wrong with that. I'm just saying that they want to save on costs. I get the reasons why. I get it, but
yeah, they're cheap.
Hey, if you really want to save on travel costs, let UCF host this year.
Well, they're not.
Just saying.
Not going to happen.
Well. Anyway, all right, let's take a break. When we come back, time to talk hoops. Bryson's going to stick around with us. Men's basketball 4-0. Aces up in Evansville. And women's basketball recovering nicely as they get ready, as they move through their non-conference tournament. A little bit of a tough test against the rather game Belmont Bruins squad. But then second half night showed up once again. We'll recap both of those when we return. It's the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Back after this. Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, Bryson Turner with you here as we wrap up the show by looking at UCF basketball. And, we had a little bit of a treat last Saturday as they were putting the men's basketball game against Evansville up on the big board. And UCF got the win in what you said was a tricky game, Eric Lopez, up in Evansville, Indiana, against a traditionally very scrappy Evansville team. You can laugh and all the way that it sounds like they're in a town of 3 people, but that's a good basketball program up there, well coached, and UCF just kind of did what they've been doing to opponents, so far this year on this 4-0 start is just they get them down and then they just keep them down, and you had made the point in your 3 takeaways that Darren Green just continues to make buckets. 6 of 13, 3 of 6 from the arc, 17 points to lead the Knights, lead all scorers actually, to go 2 rebounds, 15 points from Darius Perry on 5 of 8, to go with 4 rebounds and 2 assists. Isaiah Adams came off the bench, had a much better game, 8.6 rebounds on 3 of 5. 5 turnovers though, but UCF shot again, close to 50, just under 50%, 26 of 53, and held Evansville under 45%. They were 20 of 46, including just 37.5% in the first half, which is when UCF put them down. Even though Evansville made 7 threes in that first set, that of their 9 field goals, 7 of them were threes, which tells you that the interior defense is working. Meanwhile for UCF, they kind of had a lot more balanced scoring, 10 threes, 26 total field goals. So, and then UCF again. What I'm really impressed with, Eric, is how well we've been shooting at the line. 13 of 14 at the line in this game, 92%. I like where this team is heading. This was a very, very go in there, do what you're supposed to do, and they did it.
Yeah, they shot the ball well from 3. They kind of clammed down on Evansville as the game kind of evolved. Darren Green was tremendous. Darius Perry, I think, they led them in the way offensively. I thought that was Isaiah's best all-around game from the floor. He didn't force the issue. I feel like Isaiah's kind of forced the issue at times this year, and that's why he's just trying to find his rhythm. But he led the team in rebounding. So, look, it's a solid win. It's on the road. Now you come home to host Oklahoma, which is a big brand name game. Now, Oklahoma is kind of in a rebuild. They have a new head coach in Porter Moser, who you might know led Illinois and Chicago to the Final Four a couple years ago with Sister Jean. And in fact, they were in the Elite Eight last season, I believe. So it's kind of a rebuild. They're like, Tanner Groves is their top player. He's averaging about 18.7 boards a game. They like to push the ball up. They just played in the tournament in Conway. They lost to Utah State in the championship game. But it's a big brand game. If UCF, you're trying to build the resume, you're trying to get wins, these games matter. And I thought to win at Evansville on the road was very good experience. The depth shows. They've once again won the battle off the bench, scoring-wise and then production-wise. CJ Walker had a bit of a scare. He fell down awkwardly and landed his ankle, but he seemed to be okay. So the week comes at a good time for them.
I get worried sometimes with something like that. It's like, he doesn't really leave the game, but it's like a little thing that's going to bug him for a while,
Yeah. And so, but look, this team is certainly the talented. They're really off to a good start. I'm really curious to see how they handle Oklahoma, who likes to go up court. I think they're averaging about 80 points a game for the season. So, a team that also likes to shoot the three as well. They've hit 46 threes already in 5 games. So Oklahoma's averaging 9 threes a game, basically. So this will be a challenge for the UCF defense. And I think we'll, get a good barometer from where they're at, but certainly so far so good.
Jeff, Eric, who I'm actually really impressed with on this team this season? I'm really impressed with Ty Freeman coming off
energy guy.
The fact that he's third in points coming off of the bench, 4 for 6, 1 for 2 3-pointers, 2 for 2 from the line. I think we might have found UCF's sixth man, I would say.
He's under the radar. He's been under the radar. Really wasn't talked about preseason, but he was obviously, Dawkins spoke highly of him. He's a great athlete, brings a ton of energy, and makes immediate impact. He plays at a very fast pace. He's been very impressive and really a perfect guy to come off the bench, in my opinion, so far. He's been a good fit there. And so, look, you're right. This team has a lot of pieces with him. And look, these games are big, as I mentioned. The American is strong. Cincinnati just knocked off Illinois. Fran Fraschilla has been hyping up the 4 new members. Houston is a top 10 team. Memphis, top 10 team. Michael Dono, our friend, has proclaimed on the air that he thinks Memphis is a Final Four type team. So the thing is, if UCF wins enough the games they're supposed to and wins some of those marquee games like this one with Oklahoma, they're going to be in position to make the NCAA. That's the goal for them that they have internally. But this will be a good test. I think this is the best offensive team they've seen so far. I think Oklahoma is better than Miami in that regard. So I'm going to be curious on the tempo of this game and how UCF handles that.
Yeah. Now, by the way, to go off what you're saying, Indian Hills Community College is where Ty Freeman came from. He's a redshirt sophomore, 6'6". Listed as a guard, but he's kind of like if you're really like a wing player, I think is what you would really call him. 8 points a game, or coming off the bench, 2.5 rebounds, good energy guy. I don't know if you would call him like Bryson a real true sixth man right now, because I don't think UCF really has a true sixth man. But I like
it all based on matchups.
Yeah, it's all based on matchups with this team. But I like the fact that he's so big that he presents a problem defensively, and boy, does he run the floor really well. I think that's the part about him that I really like. By the way, Eric, looking at Oklahoma right now, their toughest test this year so far. Well, they lost to Utah State just recently,
it's a very good program. That could be a borderline NCAA tournament team this year.
And East Carolina gave them a game too. They only
lost. That was surprising. I watched
5. East Carolina only lost by 5. One thing that worries me a little bit is, just looking at the stat breakdowns, like you were talking about with Oklahoma, is they're 15th in the country in field goal percentage, which tells me that they get really good looks down low.
Yes.
Tanner Groves is, I think, benefited from that, but it's just going to be a big test, I think, for the interior defense. And I'd love to see UCF go big again. I want to see
that's going to be
CJ Walker. This is going to be big games for those two, a big game for those two guys.
Well, that's what you mentioned. Groves is 6'10". He's the senior out of Spokane, Washington. He's one of the few that got away from Mark Few and Gonzaga. I'll be curious how UCF.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Jeez.
6'10". So it'll be
how do you
interesting.
how do you let him out of the city? My man, oh man. All right.
Well, you can't get them all. I mean, I think Mark Few's doing okay for himself. So I think he's getting more than but who gets to guard him? Is it Walker? Is it Jong? Is it a combination? Probably a combo. So that's going to be something to watch, because you're right. Oklahoma's a low post team. Groves inside, could shoot from the three. He's a really good tool player. I think he's going to be on an NBA roster in the future. You're right. Oklahoma like size. They like to rebound. They've averaged +6 against their opponents in rebounding. And you were there in the Jacksonville game where UCF got really beat up in the rebounding by Jacksonville and struggled.
Yeah.
UCF, they bounced back against Evansville.
I think it was a little bit there was a little bit of a hangover from the Miami game partially. And I think the other part was I've never seen so many bounces go a team's way in a game rebounding this before. Like if you went back and looked at the tape of the Jacksonville game, UCF was in perfect position on the boards almost every play, and yet somehow the ball found its way to one of Jacksonville's 18 guards that were 6'2" or under. And it was just a Murphy's Law game on the boards for UCF. I don't think you can really I don't think you can really put that, but I know what you're saying. It's like, this is the time when you have to step up if you're a big guy.
Yeah. And another name to keep in mind, Jordan Goldwire, who's a transfer out of Duke. He's at Oklahoma. So again, this is kind of a roster that's evolving for Coach Moser, but they got athletes, they got talent. So it should be a good game.
Yeah. All right. Looking forward to that one. The tip is set for 2 p.m. Saturday. So we got the football game Black Friday, basketball game 2 p.m. Saturday. That's going to be on. It's scheduled for ESPN Plus. I'm a little surprised it's on Plus. I'm surprised the big.
There's this thing called Rivalry Football Saturday. That kind of hogs up all the TV slots.
Whatever. I don't want to hear about that. And then of course Wednesday at Auburn.
Besides, I'd rather hear Michael Dono anyway, so I'm good.
Fair point. We need the Auburn game, I think, is also going to be pretty interesting. That's on SEC Network Plus. What do we know about Auburn coming in? Because UCF, of course, got that big win against them to start the season last year. I thought that was key. Improved this year. Yes. Let's take a look right now. They're 3-0 to start. They do have one win against South Florida. The last time out, they won by 6. They're playing UConn in the Bahamas, in the battle for Atlantis coming up. And then I think they're going to play 2 more after that, I think, in the Bahamas. So,
it's a tournament. They're going to play Loyola Chicago's in it, Michigan State.
Another big team. They're 4th in the country in block shots. They're 19th in scoring defense. So they're going to present a real problem for anybody they play on the defense, on the offensive end, where, they're just big and long, right? Which is what Bruce Pearl likes to do. So, this is a much better team than they had last year. Road game. This is going to be a tough one, I think, against a good defensive team.
Auburn's a great home team. Bruce has done a good job of building that atmosphere at home at Auburn. That's why they've been so successful over the years. And you mentioned the talents. KD Johnson averaging 15 points a game. They got good balance. Jabari Smith, Wendell Green. They got a ton of guys that could put the ball in the hoop. That will be, I think Auburn's a team that will contend with Kentucky's and the Tennessees for the SEC championship this year. I think they're definitely improved. The good news for UCF, you're kind of familiar with them. You beat them last year in the home opener. I know it's a different season, but you're familiar with them. Auburn doesn't, they love to shoot the 3. Again, UCF's perimeter defense, we're going to learn a lot here between Oklahoma and then Auburn especially. Auburn averages 8 threes a game in the young season, and they like to chuck it up. Bruce likes to chuck it up on the 3-point line. They're really good defensively. We'll learn a lot about them in the Bahamas. Obviously, is with the competition they're going to play is going to go up a level. They actually struggled against South Florida on Friday. I watched that game. Michael Donald, speaking of which, did that game. They were in a battle with South Florida on the road, but that was on the road. So, yeah, you're right. Oklahoma, Auburn, back-to-back. Really good stretch here for UCF, and we'll learn a lot about this basketball team within the next week.
We're also going to learn about women's basketball coming up, too, because they're 3-1 right now. Bounce back after the loss to Tennessee with a big win at Virginia. Now, Virginia is not overly good, but boy, did UCF go up to Charlottesville and put a pounding on them last Wednesday. And then they came back home and played what I thought was a really, really tough Belmont team that wasn't interested, that looked like they could kind of figure out the math on UCF, especially in that first half. But then UCF just plowed open in the second half. I mean, plowed this game open in the second half. It was really something to watch. 43-27 was the score in the second half. It was after an 18-14 deficit at halftime. You score 14 points in the first 2 quarters and then 43 in the next 2. That means you're figuring something out pretty quickly. For UCF, leading scorers in that game, Diamond Battles, 5 of 13, 16.7 rebounds, 3 assists, and was 6 of 6 at the line. Alicia Lewis, though, Bryson, was key. She hit 4 threes in the game. That accounted for all of her makes from the floor. 3 rebounds, 4 assists. And it was good to see Lish, get back into the swing of things. I think she's gotten off to a little bit of a slow start this season, but this was her best game yet, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, I would completely agree with that. You mentioned how they scored 43 points in the second half. I just did the math on that real quick. That's 75% of their points in the second half right there. Like the halftime adjustments was absolutely a great job. Like I really appreciate this team's ability to bounce back like they do. And let's not forget they did lose to 8 to Tennessee. So certainly they certainly didn't, lose horribly in that game. And I think this game here really shows this team's perseverance and able to make quick adjustments and then get back out there and just absolutely slay it. They stunk. I mean, looking at the quarter summaries, 20% of their shots made in the first quarter, 18.75% in the second quarter. Then they go and do 69% in the third quarter and 66% in the third quarter. Meanwhile, they were perfect from the arc. And that's another thing I want to mention. Diamond Battles, lights out in the free throw department, going 6 for 6. I don't know why anyone goes and even tries to go and get close to her and foul her, because she's just gonna make those free throws. So
she forces the issue too. I think she's so adept at getting to the hole, which I think is a much improved portion of her game this year. In addition to the outside shooting, that's 68% in the second half that UCF shot. 68%. You don't see that very often. They were 9 of 9 at the line, as well, 11 of 11 for the whole game. And got some timely 3-point shooting as well, like we talked about with Alicia Lewis, who hit 2 threes in each of those 2 quarters. So now the attention turned. Oh, go ahead, Bryce. I'm sorry.
Eric, I just wanted to make sure I mention this because I know we're talking about offense a lot, but Eric talked about this in his article about the Virginia game, that UCF's defense was a really key point in what made that game work. And while the offense got off to a shaky start in the first half, once again, we're seeing the UCF defense really helping them out here, helping them keep them in the game, keep them in the game at the end. So while I would argue that maybe their offense might be up and down at times, I think their defense has been their real consistent strength so far.
Well, it's always going to have to be. That's their identity. And by the way, Belmont, and I said this last week, Belmont's the better team than Virginia. Belmont's the OVC favorites. They're probably going to be in the tournament. So that's a quality win for them over Virginia. And now they get to go out of the country.
Yeah. The Cancun Challenge at the Hard Rock Hotel Riviera Maya. UCF part of an 8-team field here. Arizona State, Baylor, Fordham, Houston, Idaho State, 9-team field. Seton Hall, Toledo, and USC, along with UCF. The Knights opened their go in the tournament here on Friday at 6:30 p.m. against Idaho State. And then they play 4:00 on Saturday against UCF. They have live. If you go to CancunChallenge.net, they actually will have the link to live video for those games through Flow Hoops, so you can watch those games. Pretty interesting field.
You may have to pay. You may have to pay, unfortunately. But yes.
Yeah. You know what? Let me see if you have to. You have to do that?
I think you have to. I think I was discussing that with somebody.
Oh,
yeah. The schedule got tweaked a little bit, by the way, because Iowa had to withdraw because they got some COVID issues. Iowa was going to be in that tournament. The big game there for UCF standpoint, USC. It's the brand name. Lindsey Gottlieb is the new head coach at USC. It's kind of unfortunate Drew's not with us because Lindsey Gottlieb was the assistant coach for the Cleveland Cavaliers the last couple of years. She's now back in college basketball. She was a longtime head coach at Cal, led them to the Final Four in 2013, and now she's back to try to restore the USC program. This was a powerhouse program in women's basketball. Remember, Cheryl Miller played there. Is one of the greats of all time. They're a 2-time national champion program. So that's a game that's interesting. Interesting, the USC and UCF both have a common opponent already in Virginia. They both played Virginia already. So SC won by, I think they won by 17 against Virginia. But obviously UCF can't look ahead because you got Idaho State. So originally it was supposed to be USC, then Idaho State for UCF, but that's been flipped around with Iowa withdrawing.
Yeah.
I will say this, it'll be very interesting to see how this team handles this, because if looking at the times, this is going to be 2 matches in 24 hours. So I think that'll be a very interesting, especially the fact that they have to play a USC in the second match after that. So,
that's where the depth's got to come in. The depth has to come in and play here. And Coach Abe was a little disappointed with the depth as far as the bench production in the early part of the season, especially the Tennessee game. They've been much better in that regard as of the last 2 games, but that's where the depth's going to come in. They've talked about having everybody back and having all this depth. This is where it's got to pay off, is for this weekend where you have 2 games. And I'll be interested to see, well, I don't know if I'll be able to see, but how much pressing do they do because it's a back-to-back? Do they press Idaho State a lot? Because they pressed Virginia the whole game and just dominated. And that's the thing. UCF's defense has 2 styles of defense. There's the style where they just play back, play the zone, dare us to beat us from the perimeter. Then there's we want to speed this up. We're going to go full court press on you, turn you over, and turn into easy baskets like they did against Virginia.
Yeah, I think that if they can, that's going to be one of the keys, is playing those back-to-backs, because it's a good tune-up when you get to conference tournament time. How do you deal with, playing, going from one opponent who's going to give you a little bit of a hard time, but you should win, to a quality opponent within 24 hours? And how does this unit fare in that situation? It's a bummer. Eric, do you know if Iowa was originally on the schedule and then
UCF will play Iowa, but that's later in the year at Iowa in December. They were not going to play in this tournament. USC was supposed to play Iowa. That's why the schedule's
because everyone else, it looks like they're playing some teams are playing 2, some teams are playing 3.
Right.
In this
UCF was scheduled to play 2 because again they're going to play Iowa at Iowa later in the year. And I haven't asked her about it, but part of that I'm sure is Coach Abe's from Iowa, so it's like a homecoming for her.
I would imagine so. So
instead of hey, let's see, should I play Iowa here, or can I just play them on the road where you're going to get better RPI and later in the year? So fortunately for UCF, they don't lose the Iowa game like USC does.
So chance for UCF to get to 5-1 on this young season, and of course they're spending Thanksgiving away from home, which but doing it down in
Mexico.
Mexico. Down in Cancun, man. Can't beat that.
I'm spending my Thanksgiving over up in around the Macon, Georgia area with the family there. So I'm going to
be in Lake Mary.
That's certainly a great place to go for Thanksgiving if you're the women's basketball team there. So
I wouldn't mind going down there with a few of my closest friends down to the playa and have fun down in Mexico. It's going to be great. Go for it. Enjoy it. Win the basketball games and have some fun. So it should be a blast. It's great the team gets to do that. Some of the folks that we know, Eric, they go to the tournament in the Bahamas over Thanksgiving weekend.
Correct. Are they doing that again?
They are doing that again.
Wow.
They are doing that again.
They missed some of them are missing Black Friday football game then.
No, I think they're back.
Oh, they make it back and forth. Oh, all right. That's always crazy there. But
so, all right. Let's wrap this thing up. Don't forget, of course, Black Friday, 3:30 p.m. UCF against USF more on I-4. Should be a good one. And then, of course,
by the way, our boys.
Yeah, we talked about that.
I'm feeling
Roy
good.
Philpott
I'm feeling good.
And Kelly
feeling
Stoffer,
good.
you like this.
I feel a lot better. You asked me about how nervous I am. Yeah.
You remember the line opened at 17. I think it jumped to 18.5 when they realized that Roy and Kelly are doing the game.
UCF has not lost a game that they have broadcasted on the ESPN airwaves. Just saying.
I love it.
Let's go.
And
they've done, I believe,
to the bank, guys.
I think they've done the last 2 UCF USF games, 19 and 20. So. Including.
I know. I'll have to double check this. So this is 3 in a row for them, huh? The hat trick.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's do it.
All right. So make sure you follow us on Twitter. It's Bryson Turner, Stat Boy Drew, Andrew Gluchov, who we had earlier. And also McKenna Melville's on Twitter too, at McKenna Melville. So make sure you follow her. And of course, Eric Lopez, Elo, and Jeff _Sharon. Follow us collectively at UCF Banneret _SBN. If you don't already. Remember, our handle got scotched by Twitter for no good reason. So we're trying to rebuild that new handle while I try to recover the old one. And then, of course, subscribe to this podcast if you don't already on iCloud, on Apple, as well as Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. You can subscribe to us here on courtesy of our hosting friends at Megaphone, who've been really fantastic for us. They get us out there to all of you, so you can download us on whatever platform you choose. Leave us a rating if you already subscribe to us. If not, make sure you subscribe and tell a friend about us too. blackandgoldbanneret.com is the place to go for all the latest UCF news, including live updates on the war on I-4, and of course, women's and men's basketball, and of course, Bryce's nightcap, which comes out early in the week. And he also got bowl projections up. Go ahead, Bryson.
Jeff, this recent nightcap that I just posted is actually the last one for this calendar year. Nightcap will be back in 2022 to cover the spring sports, but with just football, hoops, and volleyball, the only sports. There are enough sports to get their own individual recaps, but please go read the last nightcap of 2021. I'm very proud of how that turned out.
Yep.
And I'm glad to have done it through the course of this year, and I can't wait to come back with some more in 2022 with that.
Yep, and we're gonna have a lot more of that coming up too as we get ready for the volleyball selection show on Sunday. We'll probably have some reaction from that as well, and lots more to come. So. For all of us here,
schedule getting set for 2020.
And the football. We didn't. That's right. So we'll break that down, I think, next time, because I think there's some more things we have to sort out with that. But no FIU on the schedule. We upgraded and put South Carolina State on the schedule.
That's good to see that the school is listening to me about dropping FIU, and FIU's getting a step closer to really what they should be doing, dropping football altogether. Thank you. Glad people are listening to my and following me on Twitter and taking my advice. Good job. Good job, UCF. Hallelujah.
Yeah, so we're going to have that. We'll break down a little bit more of the home schedule on next week's show. By the way, next week, guys, I will not be around for the show. I'm having an operation, so I will be on IR for next week's show.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be.
You sure you can't just call in right? Halftime.
No, I'm going to be on so much medicine.
That might make it more fun. I could be making a better show.
You're probably
you haven't been
I probably lose every job I have if that happens. So I don't want to take that risk. So Eric will be in charge of the show next week. It should be fun. Hopefully I'll be in proper state of mind to edit it. but it'll be a wild Thanksgiving week indeed. So for all of us here at Black and Gold Banneret, I'm Jeff Sharon saying thank you so much for listening. Have a happy and safe Thanksgiving holiday. If you're traveling somewhere, please travel safely. And of course, like I said, enjoy the holiday, and we will see you Friday for UCF and USF. Maybe the final war on I-4 to be held in Orlando. We don't know.
And for the series lead. Don't forget that.
And for the series lead. Chance for UCF to get the series lead. Because if we lose this one, we can only tie. Right?
Yep.
So, got to win this one. For all of us here at Black and Gold Banneret, I'm Jeff Sharon saying thank you for listening. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy.